Let's Read. My name is Julie Farkas. I'm director of the Novi Library. So glad to be back with our series and with my wonderful guest, Stephen Mathews, Dr. Stephen Mathews, who's the superintendent of the Novi Community School District. Doc, thanks for joining.
You're welcome.
I hope you don't mind me calling you that.
I don't.
think it's a wonderful term because I enjoy spending time with you and learning about the Novi School District.
Well, thank you.
You're coming into the 1920 school year.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about what's going to happen this year.
Well, we have a couple of exciting things. One is we have a new strategic plan, which we developed a new vision statement, which kind of identifies what we're really trying to accomplish in our district. And the vision statement is students who are passionate, empowered, and prepared for their world and their future. So this year we hope to begin to really implement that and really focus on how we can help our students become passionate, empowered, and prepared.
Strategic statements, I think, are wonderful because it'll gives you a chance with your employees and in the district to have something to focus on and then have some kind of something to refer to as they go through the year. The libraries is inform, inspire, include, which is why you fit so well when we do things like this. What's going to drive that strategic plan this year?
Well, one of the big items for this year will be in November. On November 5th, we have an election, and the Novi Community School District will have two proposals on the ballot. And one is for a bond proposal, $185 million. It's taking the 7 mills that residents currently pay and reducing it to 6.75 mills. But extending the bond would provide resources to help continue to make Novi a destination. We want Novi, the city and the school district and the library to be a destination that people want to live here, that they identify that this is a great place for families, that they identify that this is a great place to raise their children. And so the bond would provide us an opportunity to do that. There's a lot in the bond. There's technology, there's boilers and roofs and windows and those kinds of things, but there's 3 big projects. One of them will be a redesign of the Meadows campus, building a new 5-6 building there, and then using the 5th grade house and the 6th grade house to house both our special education programs in the district, especially our adult transition students, and then also providing a better space for community education. And so that's one big project. The second big project would be to identify a permanent space for robotics, kind of engineering makerspace area at the high school, both to be used during the school day with our students, but also after school with all of our robotics teams.
Fantastic.
Then the third big item would be a Novi Activities Center, which would be an indoor space where athletic teams could practice, but also the band could practice, and it would also be a community space where Novi Parks and Rec could host a lot of their programs as well.
And we know that Michigan weather definitely can sometimes be challenging, so that sounds like a great opportunity to have that space.
So those 3 big areas are kind of the core of the bond.
I love hearing that because when you talk about makerspace and robotics, we've had some wonderful relationships already with your Frog Force and your robotics team, creating the prosthetic hand and the Enable project. We just opened our iCube makerspace.
I know, it's very exciting.
Our listeners and watchers will be able to see a segment on our iCube coming up soon in the future. And your students are taking full advantage of it now this summer.
Oh, that's great.
In the interim, while you're building and getting those plans together, hopefully they'll take advantage of seeing what we have here at the library, and I know that we've got great partnerships that will continue. We had a great year with your students. Over 2,500 kids participated in summer reading this year.
Awesome.
Yes, which was fantastic. And I know one of the things we're getting ready to do with you is to make sure that every one of your employees in the Novi Community School District, and that's 927 of them, that's a lot of people to run an amazing district. It sure is. All the intricacies that you have, obviously transportation and food service and teachers and parapros. 927 are all going to get a Novi Library card this year.
I know, we're very excited. It'll be great for our teachers, but also for our staff. They'll be able to take advantage of the library.
Yeah. And the whole point was they already work in Novi, they're in the district, and why not put up any barriers? We wanted them to have that access to the building as much as possible. And you're going to get your card today.
I know, I'm very excited.
Me too. And then also, we've got about 3,100 students that K through 6 that we're going to earmark to try to get library cards to if they don't already have them.
Yep, we emphasize the library as a resource for all of our students, and it'll be great for our K-6 students to make sure every one of them has a library card.
I cannot thank you for the years of support that you and the school board and your team has given us over the years to let us grow library service and to reach out and have that connection with your students and your parents.
It's a great partnership.
It is. So I see you did some reading this
I
summer.
did.
I have to admit I didn't get to do as much as you did, but you're going to share some titles and some books with us?
I am.
Awesome.
Yep. I brought 4 books today, 4 of my favorites from the reading I've done over the last several months. And the first one is The Truth is Told by Mason Butel.
Okay.
And it's a book about a young man who's kind of struggles a little bit in life. There's an incident that happens on his family's orchard. His friend falls from an apple tree and dies. And the police think he had something to do with it. But he knows the truth, but he has a hard time kind of expressing that and sharing. And it's a great story about kind of growing up, being true to who you are, kind of fighting off. There's some bullies in the story that kind of pick on him because he's a little big and he has some personal hygiene issues.
Okay.
But it's a really wonderful story because he makes a great friend that's kind of different from him, and they figure out how to be friends and work together, and so it's a really fun and engaging story. It'd be a great story for parents to read with their probably 4th through 6th grade students.
Great. So you're tween-age readers.
Yep.
And Leslie Connor is the author.
Right.
And a little bit of a mystery in there.
A little bit of a mystery,
like.
yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Great. Lots
Yep.
of elements. I love it.
Yeah. And then the second one is Save Me a Seat.
I've heard good things about
and this is a great
Yes.
book. It's a story that takes place over a week, and it has 2 students. One has lived in the town his whole life, and then the second kind of main character is a Indian student who has moved into the community from India, and part of it is about him figuring out how to navigate the American school system.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is him making friends with this other student. And there's also a bully in this story, and
Lots
so
of bullies in life,
and so,
isn't there? Yes.
So it's a really fun story about 2 students who seemingly are opposite from one another, who figure out how to be friends together and navigate their world. And again, it's probably for 4th to 6th grade students.
And this is by Sarah Weeks.
Mm-hmm. And
Sounds
it's
like
also
it would
was a
one of our award.
yeah, it was a collaboration of a writing project.
Oh,
it kind of grew out of a writing project.
Okay.
And so
And Geeta Fardajan?
Yep.
I think
Yep.
so.
And,
Great.
and so it's a really engaging story. It's a fun read.
Well, and it sounds like it would be something that would be appealing to our community as well, with
Right.
that dynamic and collaboration of the cultures.
Right.
Very
Yep.
good. Awesome.
And then one of my favorite authors, John David Anderson, he wrote a story. This is kind of a fantasy. It's about a fairy who becomes a grantor, and so that's the name of the book is Granted.
Okay.
And so it's about granting wishes, and this is the story of her learning how to be a grantor, because to be a grantor you have to be successful in granting your first wish. And so she's given this responsibility, and she has to figure out how to grant this wish. And there's lots of twists and turns in the story before she's finally successful. But he weaves a great fantasy about where the fairies live and all the kind of how they've structured their society and the tree and the protection that they have so that other people won't see them. And so it's just a really fun fantasy story about fairies.
There's a lot of kids too that enjoy fantasy reading,
Mm-hmm.
so this will be a nice book for them to be aware of.
Yeah.
And you said John David Anderson.
Yep, one of my favorite authors.
Yes.
He's written
Bixby's
Posted
Last
and
Day
Miss
and
Bixby's
Posted.
Last Day.
We've
and so-
talked about some of those books. Awesome.
And then this is a young adult novel, Goodbye
Okay,
Days.
good.
It starts with a tragedy. A young man, 3 of his friends die in a car accident, and he is texting them when they die. And so he feels that he's responsible. And so the whole story is about the unpredictability of life and him trying to overcome his feelings about being responsible, and the goodbye days are him interacting with the families of those students who died and trying to get over that hump. And it's a very, very engaging story that high school students would really enjoy.
It sounds wonderful. It
Yep,
does.
yep.
It sounds wonderful. And I see you getting teary-eyed.
I know,
So
it's just a,
I like
it's just
those
a
kind
power,
of books.
it's a powerful
I do.
story.
And that's the one thing about books and their power is they can really touch on some of the emotions.
Yeah, they can.
That you can
And this
experience.
is certainly one that
and this
does
is
that.
him. So Jeff Zentmere
Yep.
is the author of this
Yep.
one. This sounds fabulous for
It
our
is.
high school readers.
And I would encourage parents to read it as well,
Right.
and they could have some really interesting discussions with their young adults.
That's what I love about young adult books, though. They can transition over to adult readers as well. So
Right.
we wouldn't want someone not to think just because we call it YA
Right.
that adults wouldn't enjoy
Right.
something like
Yeah,
this.
and
it
it's a
sounds
very
like a
timely
great
topic.
Yes,
and,
it is.
And he really weaves, because he kind of flashes back, the young man flashes back to the relationships he had with all those friends. And so it's really a touching book.
And for him to have to figure out how then to move on.
Right. Yeah.
That's got to be also. And I see this is The Serpent King. This
Right.
is another good book that
Yes,
he
it
has
is.
written. So,
Right.
and I'm sure you've read it as
Yep.
well. So these are fabulous stories that we want you to be aware of. That obviously, Dr. Mathews, I know you're a voracious reader,
Yep.
and you enjoy that not only in the summer.
Not only in the
You
summer,
keep
so-
your reading up all year long. If you haven't followed Dr. Mathews on Twitter, do it because he'll give you great titles that you can continue to read throughout the school year and throughout the summer. But before we sign off, what would be one thing that you'd want to tell kids about the school year and what to look forward to?
Well, I guess the one big thing I would say to kids and their parents is that it's really important to establish routines right off the bat. It's really important to figure out how you're going to navigate, getting up earlier than you
Right,
have,
right.
making sure that you get home and have time for soccer practice and family activities, but also to get to do your homework. And then the other thing I would say is that I would encourage families to establish a reading time every day. I would encourage parents to read with their children before bed, children, young adults to read before they go to sleep. It's just
Even a chapter.
Even a chapter.
Yes.
I try to do that every night because it's so important to establish that routine. And so as the school year begins, I would encourage families to think through and think about the routines that they want and establish them early, and they'll be successful.
I love that because as a parent myself, you can get so stuck on all the things that go on. It's a very busy time of year.
is.
You're pulled by coaches, you're pulled by activities, you're pulled by maybe your faith-based, community as well, plus family time,
Right.
plus. It's hard to juggle all of
It
that.
is.
And I love that piece of advice because not only for students, but even as adults and people
Right.
who might be watching, who might not have kids in the district anymore, it's a nice reminder to just take time for yourself.
Right.
That's one part of it,
I would
right?
agree.
That is awesome. Thank you for joining me
Oh,
today.
you're welcome. Glad to be here.
I look so forward to my staff and myself interacting with you and your team this school year, and I wish you the very best for the start
thank
of
you very much.
September.
I look forward to it.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you at the Novi Library this fall. Don't forget, September is Library Card Sign Up Month, and thank you for watching Let's Read.